us, I have Teena Wilson coming to us. Teena is an executive leader of change management at the Joint Commission Center for Transforming Healthcare. Teena has over 30 years of experience helping organizations build and redesign their systems and infrastructure to support needed change to drive innovation and transformation. She has 12 years of experience in developing, utilizing, and teaching robust process improvement, RPI, methodologies, and tools to internal staff at the Joint Commission and Healthcare Organization. Teena, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. Very much looking forward to your presentation.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be here this morning. As Jose said, that I have 30 years experience of helping organizations design and redesign their infrastructure to support their business operations. I actually started in healthcare, in higher ed, where I was working with colleges and universities with helping their faculty integrate technology into their teaching. Fast forward to where we are today, it's just amazing now to see that elementary schools are using Zoom as a method for learning and training. So I think I might have been a little ahead of myself with respect to being a master change leader in working with higher ed to begin this movement toward technology. But now, more importantly, though, in the past 20 years, I moved into the healthcare arena when I started working at the Joint Commission and helping to build here internally within the Joint Commission some technology systems and structures around training. Then in 2008, I joined the Center for Transforming Healthcare, where I began to work directly with healthcare organizations and helping them integrate what we call robust process improvement and tools into their everyday use. So our topic today is leaders activating excellence through trust and change management. And I also want to kind of give you just a definition of what I mean by operational excellence. And I define it as delivering improvements in care, safety, and quality by the everyday ongoing use of problem-solving techniques that are driven and owned by staff. So kind of put that in context as I began to go through my presentation today. Okie dokie. I'm going to talk about how the Center for Transforming Healthcare High Reliability Model activates excellence and the role that trust and change management plays in leading organization and cultural transformation, which is clearly needed for change to be sustained. And then I'm going to talk about how important it is for specific behaviors and roles that are necessary in supporting and leading one's organization to operational excellence. I'm going to start with a story, and this is a story about Mary. Mary is a 62-year-old Black woman diagnosed with stage 4 gallbladder cancer with a life expectancy of 12 to 24 months. At the time of the diagnosis, Mary was still quite lively, quite active. I guess the side effects or the symptoms of that level of cancer hadn't really hit the way one would expect it to, toward the end of the life of her life. But so as part of her initial treatment, the doctors scheduled a biliary stent procedure. And that was for them to put a stent into her bile duct to remove the blockage, which would, give her better longevity, less suffering, and so forth. So her daughter took her into the hospital, and for the procedure, as it turned out, Mary actually had to have 2 procedures. But after the first procedure, the physician came out and told her daughter that he wasn't as experienced as he should have been to do the procedure, and that he was unsuccessful, and that they would reschedule the procedure with a more experienced physician. So she goes back 2 weeks later with her daughter for the more experienced physician to perform the procedure. He comes out post-procedure and tells the daughter the same thing, that he too was unsuccessful, but also gave the explanation that her bile duct was blocked with too many tumors, and so that's why he was unsuccessful. So they returned home. And later that afternoon, Mary said she was tired. She laid down for, take a nap, which wasn't really unusual. And then she slept for quite a while. Her daughter goes in and checks on her. Mary's a little unresponsive, but she's still able to get up and walk with some assistance. She goes back to sleep. Her daughter goes back in and checks on her again and notices or realizes that she has a temperature. Calls the doctor. The doctor says, to give her some anal suppositories. Her daughter has to first, go out and find the suppositories and come back. So the point here is that time is going by. So she comes home, gives her the suppositories in hopes that, bringing the temperature down would make a difference and, Mary would wake up. Well, through the night, Mary died. So, I go, well, her daughter went and checked on her and found her that she had made her transition. And of course, with that happening, her daughter wondered, what happened? Did something go wrong during the procedure earlier? Was there a breakdown in communication? If that was the case, did staff not feel comfortable in talking about it or bringing attention to it? Or even was there communication in the breakdown post, when she left the hospital? Was this something that her daughter could have expected? And could this happen again to another patient? Or how can this prevent it from happening again? And I share this story with you because Mary was my mother, and I was the daughter in the narrative. This experience is what has fueled my passion for the work that I do with healthcare organizations and helping them to transform into a high reliability industry where there are, high safety levels of excellence so that things like this doesn't happen again. So when we talk about activating excellence is all about making sure that an organization's systems and structures are in place that are strong and can help organizations transform to this high reliability and achieve the goal of zero harm. So our work at the center is that we activate excellence by helping organizations build and strengthen their systems and structures, skills and practices. This is where I want to come in and talk about trust and change management, but the goal is to transform to high reliability and achieve zero harm. So when we talk about high reliability industries, we tend to think about industries like the airline industry, nuclear power plants, amusement parks, and zoos. And as I was talking about amusement parks, I thought, oh my goodness, Disney World must have a robust process. I mean, they are really in that high reliability realm. And so the key here is, what do these organizations have in common? They operate in complex, high hazard domains for an extended period of time without incident, accidents, or catastrophic failures. And they have a culture and a set of operating principles that support an error-free performance. And I like this part. They have a collective mindfulness where staff look for and report on small problems or unsafe conditions that can be fixed right away. It is part of their routine to look for these things and repair them so that they don't cause any future failures. So they are ahead of the game. They also value the identification of errors so that they can learn from those errors, I should say, and learn from these errors or close calls, because there are lessons that the lessons from them can provide them or show them weaknesses in their protocols and procedures before they even get to the point of being a failure. So the lessons are used to strengthen systems and prevent future errors. And so this collective organizing around safety helps to reduce the rate of errors. It increases the level of better performance, as well as low staff turnover. We at the Joint Commission we have not seen to date any healthcare organization that has reached that high level of safety and quality. So recognizing that gap between high reliability principles and common practices in healthcare, Dr. Chasson and Dr. Loeb researched high reliability industries outside of healthcare to see if there were any key learnings that they could adapt and apply to healthcare so that hospitals could receive the same level of quality and excellence in their delivery of care. Based on their work, the results from their work was then framed into our model for high reliability in healthcare. And this work was published in the Milbank's quarterly article, as you can see here, back in 2013. So what is high reliability? So high reliability in healthcare is maintaining consistent levels of safety and quality over time across all healthcare settings and services. And the model proposes that there needs to be 3 domains of change to achieve this particular goal. So changes in leadership, safety culture, and process improvement. So the first domain is leadership commitment to zero harm for all patients and their families, staff, and visitors to the organization. And they also need to have an unwavering commitment to the goal of zero harm. And I'm going to say one and the same. Leaders need to have an unwavering commitment to any goal that they have that's going to make improvements within their organization. And then one of the things that high reliability organizations have in common is they have this goal of zero harm where it kind of feeds into this continuous cycle of improvement. And they also continue to look for or are never satisfied with their current safety levels. They're always looking and seeking to improve them. Safety culture. Safety culture, to create and sustain a safety culture is crucial to the success of creating your in this particular domain. And safety culture means creating an environment where staff feel comfortable in speaking up when they see unsafe conditions, and speaking up without fear or retribution is the key to the empowering staff to speak up. So in essence, you're going to look to include or make speaking up a part of folks' day-to-day work so that you can get this. I'm going to get to this in a minute, but get to this cycle of improvement that's essential to establish for your safety culture. But we also want all staff to feel comfortable speaking up, from the front line to the CEO. So no one is exempt or no one is not expected to speak up. Even if it's not, this doesn't stop at frontline staff. It includes all staff to be able to speak up when they see an unsafe condition that is going to happen or is about to happen. So when we think about what it's going to take for leaders to create a culture of safety, we need to take a look at this trust, report, and improve reinforcing cycle. This cycle is adapted from the work by Reasons and Hobbs, and this is an illustration of the behaviors and actions that are crucial to creating a safety culture. This is crucial to creating a safety culture. The essence of this, again, it gets embedded in their day-to-day work, but it also creates this opportunity to have an environment where staff feel comfortable in speaking up. And also, trust, report, and improve does work in a cyclical fashion. Trust needs to be established within the organization. When there is trust in the organization, staff feel comfortable about speaking up. And this then leads into staff being able to or feeling comfortable to report unsafe conditions. But when these reports come in to leadership, it's leadership's responsibility to respond positively to these reports, and then also begin to make improvements. This whole cycle, this reinforces the cycle of trust, report, and improve. Leaders also need to discuss visibly about these improvements to the organization, to staff, and to patients. Again, this continues to reinforce this cycle of trust. And it also enforces this whole cyclical concept so that staff can repeat this cycle of trust reporting and improve. And we call this the virtuous circle of trust, because it continuously happens, it continuously evolves. When we think about earlier when I was talking about the collective mindfulness, this is very similar to that, in that at this point, here's where you are beginning to create a culture that is looking for improvements, that's interested in improvements. And from a leadership perspective, you're building trust that this is the way we operate at this organization. So this makes a stronger and safer dynamic, and that inspires even more trust. And the work that results from these improvement efforts also lead into the frontline staff, or addressing issues for the frontline staff, and also address safety issues. So it also empowers staff to continue to bring in that information. And at the same time, while they are also reporting, they're also identifying areas of improvement. So when they identify those areas of improvement, as I mentioned before, it's the leadership's responsibility to respond and make those improvements. So I mentioned earlier, I think, about how this also begins to create a high reliability mindset, which is also reflective of a culture change. And so with this high reliability mindset, when things occur, so let's say, for example, something happens, and so in a current state, pre-high reliability set of principles or understanding, the response would be, "Ooh, we got lucky that time." Instead, with the high reliability mindset, it says, what can we learn from this near miss? Or, that's not my job, area, or department. A high reliability mindset says, I have the resources, training, and skills to help out. And then finally, we've always done it this way, why change? Instead, a high reliability mindset says, we are happy with the outcomes. How can we improve? And finally, the last domain is robust process improvement. Organizations need to fully adopt and utilize the most effective improvement tools of change, Lean Sigma, change management, Lean Six Sigma. And the reason for that is because we know that complex healthcare problems are complex, and they do require systematic data approach to complex problem solving, as well as implementation, and also with sustained changes. I used to run a program here called the Codman Award Program. It was in a program where organizations that were elected by the commission would submit their performance improvement projects. I ran the program for 5 years. Every year, we got the same collection, it appeared, categories of improvement efforts. Every year, there was always handoff communication. There was always hand hygiene compliance. There were always issues about pressure ulcers, how to reduce pressure ulcers, and reducing the rate of falls. And before my experience with the Joint Commission, I used to wonder, why are we getting these same initiatives all the time, over and over? But through my work with the center, I learned because organizations have not been able to improve or sustain the gains that they've made with their hand hygiene compliance. So this is where these set of tools can help organizations sustain their improvements. And this blend of tools we call robust process improvement at the Joint Commission. We use them here, and we're also spreading these tools to the partnering healthcare organizations that we work with. So Robust process improvement, as I said before, is a blended set of tools and methods for improving. And it includes formal change management, which promotes acceptance and accountability for change. Lean Six Sigma. Lean looks at reducing waste, and Six Sigma looks for reducing variation. So these tools collectively together act as the improvement engine for the improvement efforts that are fostered through the robust process improve cycle. So why is this approach so successful? We know that healthcare problems are complex, and that there have been a lot of efforts in process improvement efforts, such as creating checklists and bundles for specific procedures. This checklist, toolkit, or bundle process doesn't work for all applications. So if you have a process that you know that step by step by step has to be followed, checklists and toolkit bundles work fine. But when you have processes and procedures that vary across settings, that can vary across different areas within organizations, you need to be able to find those key contributing factors as to why this particular incident is going on. And I'm going to use hand hygiene again as an example. We know that there's a lot of variation in hand hygiene practices. They can vary from floor to floor. They can vary from organization to organization. And so you can't take a bundle and apply all of those solutions to that particular organization, because there are many causes of the same problem. We also know that organizations that use this collective process of improvement, what they're able to do with this in handling complex problems is that they're able to measure and discover their specific root causes. They're also able to identify variations within those processes and identify the ones that are their specific cause. And then they can target those interventions to their specific causes. And then that allows them to, of course, be more effective and also be more effective, but also save time and money. And then finally, because they are targeting these solutions, they have, like I said before, targeted solutions that are being applied to their specific causes. So let's look at an example here. The center partnered with 8 hospitals and in working with discovering the most significant hand hygiene failures for this collection of hospitals. And what they came up with is what you see here is this column on the left, these top 10 most, I won't say most successful, but the most significant causes for failures for washing hands. And what you see, you have these 8 hospitals, and these X's represent the causes that were most significant for all of the hospitals. If we were to treat this as a bundle, let's say, what you would see is for hospital A, they would be spending time and money and resources in fixing something that isn't broken for their organization. So this is how this collection of RPI tools work effectively. I'm going to get into change management in a minute, which is kind of like what I would call the bow that you put on the package to make it more effective or to maintain it. So setting the course with change management, I like to call this section. And one of the things that we want to think about with this particular piece is that we need to be aware that what is change management? You know, I get questions from folks that, to me, clearly don't have an understanding of what change management is. They tend to think that, I don't know what they think actually, but they present me with questions that make me think that they don't understand exactly what change management is. So what change management is, I like to say that change management is both a process and a skill set. Key to this, though, is that what I said before, when I gave you the description about what's included in RPI, and I said that change management focuses on promoting acceptance and accountability. The key thing here is that change management focuses on the people side of change. You can have, as an organization, the best solution in the world. But if you don't focus on acceptance or accountability, it's very difficult for organizations to maintain that change and maintain a particular level of change. And so what organizations typically do is when this happens, they go back and take a look at the technical solution and continue to work on that to make that better without paying attention to the acceptance and accountability. So that's why we include change management in our model, because as a process, we give you have a structured set of tools that you work through to make sure that you get that acceptance and accountability by including people in the process. It's a skill set for leaders in that once leaders understand the way in which to implement a change initiative by going through these tools and methods, it makes the change much more sustainable. So you have this skill set as a leader. Now, in order to make a cultural change for your organization, you need to have this skill set for the whole organization. So early on, when I talked about, trust and change management being activating excellence, these are key principles that organizations can use to start improving their processes so that they are sustained. At the Joint Commission, we call our change model, our change management model, facilitating change. And what you see here are the 4 components within our change model. The arrow here indicates that the tools that are listed in each of these sections can be used at any time. So you can go back and forth. The key is understanding what it is you're trying to do. So I'm going to go through each of these sections, give you an overview of each of these sections. I'm going to try not to go on, I don't have time to go into details of each one, but I want to give you a good taste and a takeaway for what they can do. So when you're thinking about planning your initiative, as I was thinking about this presentation, I thought, what would be a really good analogy? So I'm going to try this. So when you are getting married, you have a wedding. So this is an initiative that you're working through. You have to have a plan. So that I'll leave that right there. So when you're thinking about, a project or process or an initiative such as helping your organization adapt high reliability principles, you want to think about the culture. What impact will culture have on my change initiative? And I like to bring this up at this point because oftentimes we don't consider the impact of culture on our change initiative. And one of the things that we say is that when change goes up against culture, culture always wins. So by assessing your culture and understanding how your change initiative or how certain aspects of culture will affect your change initiative, doing that at plan gets you ahead of the game. Wouldn't it be good to know the impact of culture on your change initiative before you get started? At least having that conversation. You want to assemble a strategy. You want to understand who needs to be on your team. What other areas within the organization will be impacted by your change initiative? Could that, in fact, because you don't address the impact, that might be an area of resistance? So having those conversations and understanding why that is in fact the case is a great place to start as you're planning your initiative. And I said before, getting people involved is really the key in terms of this is how you can build acceptance and accountability because people are involved. They know what's happening, at least from this planning standpoint. Not everybody's involved. You're going to identify who you need to be on your team, and you're going to assemble a team as part of your strategy. Then you're going to look into inspiring people. Who do I need? What kind of support? What kind of involvement do I need from my organization to get on board with this particular change? And, from a leadership's perspective, I know that leaders have more strategic work that they have as opposed to focusing on initiatives or process improvements at the project level. But since we're talking about cultural transformation here, organizational transformation, this is what brings us up to the leadership level. You want to get your staff involved. You want to communicate what's happening. And this is key. You want to communicate what's happening. You want to talk about what's happening, what isn't happening. When we started our process improvement initiative at the Joint Commission, and people kind of had bits and pieces of information about Lean Six Sigma, what it does, since we know that Lean eliminates waste and Six Sigma eliminates or reduces variation, the first thing that comes in people's mind is the fear of being laid off. So that's why you want to get ahead of whatever kind of a word that is being carried through your organization, so that you can communicate what is happening, what isn't happening, and sharing your vision. I'll get to that in a minute. But through those communication efforts, you build trust and credibility. And trust establishes, it lays the foundation. Trust opens the door, because people are ready to, that's what people hold on to move forward. And of course, visible sponsorship is the key, whether it's a sponsorship for this overall huge initiative or a sponsorship for an improvement effort that staff brought before through to their manager or to their director as a result of the trust report and reproof cycle. Launching the initiative is key. Now remember, we've done all of this work up to this point. We've done plan, we've done some inspiring, but how can you get the initiative off the ground if you don't have the infrastructure and the operations to support it? So there's one thing to have the capability for change, but you may not have the capacity. So you want to take a look at your systems and structures, such as policies that you might need to change to support the change, or staffing that you might need, or some changes within IT, for example. So you want to make sure that you touch base on all of those areas to help build capacity so that you can maintain the changes that your organization is looking forward to do, the changes that your organization is looking to do as it begins to implement and start using some of the high reliability principles. The high reliability principles that I've been talking about, that I've had focused on a little bit, is trust and change management. And then communicate. We had communicate really all the way through, but what are some of the vehicles that you can use to communicate your change initiatives? You may need to be a little bit more innovative. When I talked back then about how that virtuous cycle of trust, reinforces that trust report and improve cycle, you want to think about how that drives innovation. Perhaps something innovative came out of that or comes out of that initiative. And so you want to talk about that and share that with the organization. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I want to try to remember to bring up a particular point about innovation. So we did the cultural assessment in plan. Now that we've launched the initiative and things are moving forward, looks like, we have buy-in from people, we have acceptance, we have some accountability, we promoted this really well. But you want to take a look at to see if there were any cultural roadblocks that came up after the initiative. A lot of things can, you start out one way, but then things can change in the process. So you could have some cultural roadblocks that crop up as a result of the movement through your change initiative. So you want to monitor your progress and then sustain the gains that your organization makes. Monitoring progress is also essential, because in change management, we say you cannot take your eye off that. You have to constantly monitor to make sure. Now, some of the things that happen that could cause a shift in your progress that you've made could be the case that you have new staff and there was no carryover in training about how this particular procedure worked. So you have a staff person that comes in, they're used to doing it the way, process the way they did at a previous organization. So without that set of training, there was some decrease in the rates that you had with the progress that you were making in a particular protocol. So as a leader, and you think about the changes that you've made at your organization, your action as a leader is to be the person in front to tell them that the change or the system is changing or is processing. So it feels like a top-down decision that's made with this typical change implementation model. And so as a result, the reaction that you'll have from staff is that they can ignore it, they don't comply, they work around it. Well, if you're working on something really essential, it's key that the organization embraces this and works in this new way. Change management helps you to avoid that. Change management makes sure that your success or your acceptance or the buy-in that you need is not based on chance. It's strategic, it's planned, and you work through that. So leaders and the roles, behaviors that's needed for leading and supporting change is key here as well. So successful change within your organization requires strong and active and visible leadership support. And vision is important. Again, it goes back to what I talked about with how we started out at the Joint Commission, but even how the organizations that we work with, they establish the vision for their organization. They establish the vision that they want to share with their leadership. It's also essential that that you provide strong champions and sponsors. And when I talk about this part of leadership role, the concept that's kind of missing here is when you have a project, we have you fill out a complete charter. And so the charter identifies who the sponsor or the champion is. That champion is the person that goes out and makes sure that the team that's working on a project has the tools that they need. They remove roadblocks. They also show up and they're visible and they're active, and there's that public commitment and support. That goes back to in the trust report and improve cycle, where our leaders are visible when they're discussing with staff and patients alike about the improvement effort. That's visibility. That's also entrusting, again, for staff to report unsafe conditions because you're out there and you're talking. When you're passionate about something, I talked about my passion earlier, it ensures that you give it time and you focus on the effort. We have a tool called a calendar test. And the first time I did the test, the way that it works is, you write down the things that you're passionate about. And I wrote them on my list. And then the next step is look on your calendar and see how much time you've given those items, how much time you've given them on your calendar. And when I did that, I was really surprised to see that those things that I said that I was passionate about did not show up on my calendar. Then I did the way I thought they would. Then I did the reverse of that. And I thought, well, what do I do all the time? And that was an aha moment for me too as well. So because one of my key things I know is that, I'm exercising and getting in shape. Well, that wasn't on my calendar. So I had to refocus that. But then, make sure that you show up with your personal accountability. Tell the truth. Sometimes I'll just say, I got to fall on my sword and just tell you, because that also helps to build credibility. And so as you build that credibility through telling the truth, that it allows people to encourages people to want to be a part of the initiative. So as you begin to think about spreading high reliability principles within your organization, you want to think about that you need to commit to zero harm and inspire people that this is important work. So you want to promote the value of proposition and engage your stakeholders. And that means talking to your board, your leadership team, your middle managers, patients, and families. You don't want to leave anyone out of that conversation because it's important that you engage those stakeholders and identify gaps and align those resources. So I talked about earlier how Dr. Chaston and Dr. Loeb looked at how they compared high reliability industry principles with the common practices within healthcare. Look for those gaps to see if there are any changes that you need to make so that you can align those resources appropriately to support your goal of implementing those principles of high reliability. Empower your frontline managers and empower your frontline managers to support the changes that are being reported up through to them from their frontline staff. Nobody can address problems as well as those people being affected by the change. This is what you get with change management, because that's a key aspect of looking for solutions and involving folks in the work that you're doing. So be transparent about performance and let go of the status quo. I know that you're the leader, but there are other people in other places that can get the work done better because they are, an expert in that particular area. One of the high reliability principles that I didn't talk about is this deference to expertise. Let people that know how to get the work done do the work. Of course, there's a little bit more to it than that, but at the high level, consider that. So high reliability is not just a project or initiative. It's how our leaders view it as a cultural transformation. This is our trust. So identify opportunities to build trust. This is essential in terms of you want to make sure that you're present and you're listening. Being present means if you're in a meeting, be present. Don't look at your phone constantly. Make sure that people see that you are approachable. Also, as a leader, ask open and honest questions. It's real easy for people to be suspect. The leader is here, but be open and honest, because that encourages people to speak up and talk to you, and look for those opportunities to go out and talk to them as well. What better way to learn about unsafe conditions or near misses than by going out and talking to people? It's also key that as you talk to them, they need to feel comfortable in their environment where they don't have to feel like there's going to be some retribution that's associated with that. A key aspect of that trust, report, and reprove is this element of eliminating that fear of retribution. But that's not to say that that's not the case for all of the accidents that occur, but keep that in mind. And then promote civility. Be the model of good behavior. Ask for and pay attention to your progress. And I do want to come back and say model good behavior. There's nothing worse than that. Some of you have heard this, don't do as I say, not as I do. People are looking at you when you become, and I'm going to put this out there, an agent of change. As you look to transform your organization, your staff is going to be watching you. So you want to make sure you model the behavior that you want to see in them. And then as you manage your organization, hire for civility, teach for civility. Try not to hire people that don't fit the expectation of what you want. I guess maybe a good way to say this is don't hire a bully, someone that has bully tendencies. And I'm trying to watch my words here, but you want to hire for civility where there is this common level of respect and willingness to be respectful, while at the same time being capable of being transparent and say what needs to be said in a respectful manner. So create group norms within your organization and then reward good behavior. We do that a lot at our organization. And this is key. I mentioned before bullying behavior, but this is one of the not addressing intimidating behavior is one of the fastest way to disrupt your virtuous cycle of trust. It's a great way to disrupt or take your initiative off track. It can derail it in a heartbeat. So continue to actively solicit safety concerns and set clear expectations that there's nothing more important than keeping our patients and staff safe. mean, at one of our participating hospitals, the CEO had a webinar for all of the staff to attend. This is during COVID times, to talk about how important it is for their organization to make sure that staff is safe. So this is a message, this is a mode of communication that went out to the organization to share with them their value to them. This is another key aspect of trust and transforming your organization so that people feel good about where they are. So identify and manage your safety hazards and address them quickly. I talked about that before. And then provide feedback. And this, I also mentioned this, where you want to coach, counsel, and console. Do it consistently, doing it the same way for all levels of folks within your organization, particularly when you have to address an incident within your organization. And reflect on lessons learned and celebrate. And this reflection on lessons learned build your capacity for improvement. Learning from those mishaps, learning from those close calls, learning from small problems can make a huge difference as you begin to, or as staff begin to feel comfortable providing opportunities for improvement around that. And build your capacity for RPI, build your capacity for improvement. And remember, RPI is this blend of tools of Lean Six Sigma and change management. These tools together can help your capacity to reach that goal of achieving zero harm, reach that goal of activating excellence. So focus on defining the problem rather than managing the solution. I like this particular piece as well. Actually, I like all of it, but I like this particular piece as well because in change management, we talk about focus on the problem, focus on the issue and not the people. Oftentimes, the process is broken. It's not the people that's doing it incorrectly. So it's good to focus on the process that helps to alleviate people feeling like they're being accused of something. And it also keeps them open for change. And be an effective change agent and improvement change agent, or improvement champion, I should say. And I like using this again, the term change agent. As a leader, you are working toward changing your organization. Last year, we had a program called Stories of Transformation, where we brought in frontline staff who had been trained in RPI to share with us their success stories. And I think one of the ones that really endeared me was, and this is where I'm going to talk about innovation, was an organization that included patients or families in their training module for RPI. So they had an advisory council. So this is a group of nurses, staff that worked in the NICU unit, and they also included in the training parents. Those parents became very effective as the organization created an advisory council that included the parents. This advisory council acted as those folks that gave an orientation to the parents of sick children. This took the responsibility off of the nurses. So as part of, which was great because now the nurses had more time to attend to the patients, and then the parents were acting as this agent, as an ambassador, if you will, for that particular area, because you can imagine how much trust is needed in that area and how much comfort parents need for their sick children in that area. So to create a program where this happens grew out of this organization's RPI experience and training program. So here, another quote from one of our leaders that says, get people out of their silos and to trust that working together is going to result in improved processes and reduce harm. So there's that trust word again. So this is the RPI infrastructure that I talked about. So which is this full adoption of Lean Six Sigma and change management. You want to make sure that to do this well, you want to train all of your leaders and all of your employees in this training. And then you want to foster widespread adoption. So as you reflect on this, given the principles that I've shared with the principles that with the high reliability principles that I shared, some of the change management tools that I talked about, reflect on what would your organization look like? What would the day-to-day work look like if your organization were to embrace some of these principles? Or even all of these principles, what would they look like? So some of the key points I want you to take away from this presentation is how important it is to build trust or ensure that trust remains strong is a crucial leadership function. And I point this out at this particular point because we have an article that Emery Benedicto released, and it dealt with how to build trust or the importance of trust during the pandemic. And so because you have a foundation in trust with communication, with staff listening, by having this two-way communication, you're able as a leader to better support or provide stronger support to your workforce at this time, which we all know is crucial during this time of COVID. You want to create.
I apologize for interrupting, but we have gone over our allotted time for the presentation Q&A.
Okay.
So I'm actually think this is an awesome point to be at because the audience has a chance to see the summary that you have created here for them.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. So if you could stop sharing the presentation at this point, we want to thank you for presenting on this incredibly relevant topic for the audience. Great presentation. We ran out of time for the Q&A, but the key here is that there are several questions that came in. We can go on LinkedIn. Just look under my name, Jose Perez, and you can post your comments and questions there. And I hope that Teena can go in there as well and post commentary and answer questions. And that would be a great way of following up. So wonderful representation of what the Joint Commission is doing for transforming healthcare, and wonderful insights. We really appreciate you taking the time to share that today with our global audience.
Thank you. As I said, I'm passionate about this work, so it's hard to stop talking about it.
Absolutely, and that's as you said in your presentation, we need people with purpose, passion, discipline, resilience to make these changes come through in our organization. So thank you for taking the time and sharing those insights with us today.
Okay, thank you, Jose. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up our last session for day one. And we'll take a quick look at what's in store for us tomorrow. Tomorrow, we start at the same time as the first session today, and we start with the art of data in digital transformation. So we have a presentation from the leader of a technology organization, and discussing the art and science of data in successful digital transformations. That will be followed up by Dr. Karen Tilstra, who will discuss from a healthcare perspective how innovation labs can ignite innovative thinking in healthcare organizations. So Dr. Karen has a very interesting insights, but also interactions that happen during her presentation. You do not want to miss that. And then we wrap up with a couple of industry leaders. One is the Senior Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer for Cambia on the innovation flywheel and how to generate enterprise momentum and avoid innovation theater. And then we'll wrap up the day with Stephen Nichols, who is the Chief Clinical Technology Officer for SCP Health. So look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Great lineup of industry leaders sharing their expertise and practical experiences with us. Thank you for your time today. We'll see you back tomorrow, and have a great rest of your day.